Today's session is all about how to create franchising joy. I've never run a franchise business, but I've been speaking to Graham for long enough to know that joy has not always been a present ingredient in every franchise arrangement that you've been part of, Graham.
Indeed not, but who doesn't want more joy in their life? That's all.
I'm pretty sure you used to have hair when we first started talking about all of these things. So we're going to discuss the true impact of mental health in franchising today. So I've never run a franchise business, but I do run my own business, and I think that for every business owner, being in business is an emotional roller coaster. That much I know for a fact. From discussions we've had, Graham, it would appear to me that running a franchise business is not just like the emotional roller coaster. It's like riding the big one in Blackpool, perhaps without the safety bar down.
That's a very good analogy. That's for sure. So
yeah, the consequences are bigger. So you're in the right conversation. You're in the right session. We think if mental health and well-being of both yourself first and foremost and your franchisees matters to you, you don't just want your franchisees to turn a profit if it ruins their life, because that is not going to help them achieve their hopes and dreams and get them to where they want to be. You would like to explore what more you could be doing to support your franchisees. Something we'll maybe get into in a little bit is that a lot of people in franchising want to do something about this, but maybe aren't sure where to start or don't have the structure in place. So we'll explore some of that today. And you're curious about what others in this space are perhaps doing to encourage the conversation. Let me go to my next slide. So just a quick few bits of admin. We will be running for about an hour. My usual plan is to talk for about 45 minutes, but there's a touch of Graham McKinnon salt on that. So we'll see how we go. If you would like a high quality replay and also the notes of today's session, you can register at the pages.franchology.com/notes, and I will put that link in the chat, both on Riverside and on LinkedIn shortly. We'll also email you. So we do these sessions every month, and we'll email you when both the replays are available and when we're doing forthcoming sessions. Firstly, who are we? Well, I'm Rob Drummond. I kind of head up the marketing here at Franchology. I'm on the call with Graham McKinnon, who's the founder of Franchology, and Jen Chapman-Buffin, who's the founder of Cinder and Her Tribe. So firstly, Graham, it's that time of the month where I ask you to introduce Franchology in 60 seconds, set the timer going, and we see how we do. So yeah, Graham, please introduce yourself.
I'm laughing because I've never managed to describe Franchology in 60 seconds yet, but here we go. This is going to be the one. So at Franchology, we help franchisors and franchise partners to deliver seemingly impossible performance and growth. We do this by tapping into all the lessons learned, insights gained from over 2 decades as a franchisor, and now as a franchise coach, mentor, and trusted advisor. This is all underpinned with the latest research from the worlds of neuroscience, psychology, and a deep understanding of how to create synergistic, profitable franchisor-franchisee relationships. Simply put, said this last month, if Carlsberg decided to deploy franchising as a growth strategy, they would probably engage Franchology. If you'd like to find out how Franchology could help your business, I'm always happy to invest 30 minutes of my time to find out whether we might be a fit or not. Stop.
Lovely. You'll be doing Carlsberg ads before you know it. Jen, please introduce yourself and what you do, and where can people find out more about your work?
Okay, so what have I got? 30 seconds per business.
No, you've
Pressure
got
is
as long as you want. I just try to keep the leash on Graham's
Or
introductions.
don't give me total freedom. That is dangerous. So I have worked in franchising for over 10 years now. Like a lot of people, I fell into franchising accidentally and have never left, apart from one stint outside of the industry as a brand manager, and then quickly came back. And during COVID, I spoke with loads of brands as I worked with the British Franchise Association, and many of them were struggling with how to support their franchise network because their role evolved and has continued to evolve as a franchisor in supporting their network, particularly with personal issues and how to manage things like their mental health and well-being. So from that, I've combined both of those kind of knowledge bases to create Cinder. And at Cinder, we do everything to do with franchising and mental health. So our aim is to create resilient franchise networks because we believe that the more resilient you are and the better mindset you have, the better and stronger your business is going to be. So we do that through training, bespoke workshops and conference talks. So really, from knowing franchising and how weird and wonderful it is in the greatest of ways, we make everything bespoke. So every sector, every franchise itself is different. So it's not kind of off the shelf thing. And then Her Tribe is something that started really recently with my business partner, Alexis Neighbour, who is also a franchise coach. And we have combined together to bring our skills and passion for supporting women in particular to come together to have that opportunity to pause, build self-awareness and build clarity moving forward. So not so much about franchising, it's open to any women who are business owners or in positions of senior leadership to come together and find their people that get them.
If you're riding the roller coaster, then you probably need to find your tribe, I guess, and
absolutely
find the right support. Yeah. I'd like to start by talking about why is joy perhaps absence in franchising. I mean, perhaps this extends to business as well, and we're all trying to grow businesses, do marketing, make sales. It seems to me that, especially in a sort of franchising kind of, yes, if you bring on a franchise, you want them to maximize. Let's say if it's a territory-based arrangement, you want it to maximize that territory. You want to, in as loving as way as possible, kind of hold them accountable in some regards. But how in your experience does this go wrong? Is it the case that sales and marketing, for instance, is being prioritized over the well-being of people? I'll put this to Jan first, maybe.
Sorry, mate. Okay. So I think when I speak to a lot of franchisors, it depends on what their priorities are. I'll be honest and say a lot of franchisors come to me in a moment of crisis when something has already gone wrong, so they're firefighting. When that's not the case, I often hear from people that it's something that they want to do, but they feel this need and this pressure to do things towards sales and marketing because that's where the short-term hit, the short-term win is of potentially making a bit more money. So they may well do things like social media training to get people on reels and things like that, which is really interesting that you have this example here of you won't do that Instagram live if actually you're not feeling great. And I think that is so true because you could invest thousands in the best training in the world, but actually if you are experiencing stress, overwhelm, anxiety, you're not going to have either the rates of productivity to do that extra sales and marketing, but you're also not going to have that live presence and feeling of capability to do it. So yes, it may well be that that initial sales and marketing priority gives you a short-term win, but I think actually in order to get that longevity of the success of a business, it is investing in making sure that actually people have the awareness and the tools for resilience so that actually they can juggle that roller coaster of a business.
Yeah. Graham in the past has often referred me to Angela Duckworth's work about grit, and
Yeah, yeah,
perhaps that applies here as well. And we've discussed in the past that maybe grit and resilience is the kind of primary thing that you maybe need in franchising, perhaps more than some of the other, attributes or skills
yeah.
necessarily. And maybe this is a foundation of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like that, I believe that should be, you need grit and resilience to be able to do any of the other business skills. If you don't have grit and resilience, then you could be the best marketeer in the world. But actually, if you can't get yourself through some of the challenges from personal or business life, then you're not going to be able to do it. So it's kind of it's that essential foundation. It's like when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you need to have those basic things covered and mastered first before you can get to that top point of being able to be your best self or your best business.
Yeah. Graham, I wondered if you wanted to come in on this. I have a thought about Maslow, which I'll offer in a sec.
Come back to. Yeah, I mean, first of all, unsurprisingly, Jen, you're absolutely bang on in terms of what you have just articulated, and I think it is amplified, I guess, in franchising. I think that's part of what we're saying, and again, it's not. It's something which, in my experience, it affects everybody. Everybody at some stage to a greater or lesser degree. And that's why I think having appropriate and effective mental health awareness and support in place is actually it's not a nice to have. It's crucial. We are as franchisors. It's an element, and I think I can see the sands shifting slowly. I think the awareness is being raised, but all too often, and I say what I'm about to say, knowing that, when I started my own franchising journey as a franchisor, I didn't have an understanding about how important this stuff was. And the vast majority of training and support was very much, and often today still is, very much focused on the model, the key things that need to be done, whether it is obviously sales and marketing. But the other part, which I think I definitely have totally underestimated, and again, working with franchisors and with franchisees in the capacity that I do now, I think it's really underestimated just how much grit and resilience is required, because there's still a lot of people who think that franchising, at the extreme, is that everything's going to be done for them. That, they're going to invest in this franchise business and the door will be open, whether it's a physical or metaphorical door, and clients are just going to rock up. And they are not. Certainly not in the vast majority of cases. And when you put that into the mix and recognize that everybody typically coming into a franchise business will have invested a significant amount of usually money, quite often money that's been borrowed, quite often literally, putting it all on the line to make this business work. And when that's not happening fast enough, the stress, the anxiety, the fear is pretty quick to kick in.
I think also it takes a lot of bravery to raise your hand and say that you need help. And maybe it's a case of expectation setting when people come on board of say, this is how your franchise business is going to grow. It is going to go through this roller coaster. When you're in the pit, we have this help available. And you will need it, and it's okay to use it. And maybe there's a case of expectation setting at the outset as well.
Yeah, and I think also like matching that the path of the business roller coaster being really, really like sort of blatantly spelling it out that when your business dips like this, you will probably feel like this, and that's normal. So matching like the business path with the path of how you're likely to feel as well, I think is really important.
Yeah, and it's so. I was just going to add to that. I think it's really important as well. It's absolutely important to say what we've just said, but it's also really important to remind people of that, because it's interesting when we start to just think about, a little bit about human psychology and human behavior, for example. And again, I've seen this literally time and time again, where people hear the words, but they actually think, well, I get that, but that's not me.
Yeah.
I've been really successful, or I've done this or whatever, and almost simultaneously forget the words. and and until such times as the issues are becoming overwhelming, and of course at that stage, it's all too easy to just get stuck in your own head about that, and actually to talk about it. So, yeah.
I was thinking about the role of the uncomfortable friend as well, and the requirement to really have someone who can recognise that. So in my business, the uncomfortable friend is usually my wife, who can see that things are not right, and she says, "What's wrong?" And I go, "Nothing's wrong."
Yeah.
And she says, "Come on now, what's really wrong?" And I go, "Oh yeah, it's actually this." And maybe you need someone like that who can encourage that kind of conversation.
Yeah, I think it's someone, but also in yourself, like to have the skills of building that self-awareness from the start, because actually like it's setting those expectations of yourself and your business that actually for a lot of franchise businesses, your business doesn't function if you don't function. Like it's that important, if you're not fully functioning, your business can't fully function. So it's therefore must be essential that from day one you are given, as essential it is that you're given the tools and training to do sales and marketing, that you're also given the tools and training to build that self-awareness, so that if you don't have that person, that uncomfortable friend to say what's going on, actually you've got the tools and the routines, if you like, to have that opportunity to check in and know actually in yourself that something's not quite right, and be able to spot why and what you can do about it. So being proactive from the start. And I think it's interesting that you've got the title of this is about joy, because I think joy is an odd thing to seek in some ways. We're often looking for happiness, but I think actually a lot of the time that is just a byproduct, really. It's about contentment, isn't it? And actually in franchising, although franchising can be incredible for mental health, in some ways it can be tricky because there is so much comparison and competition within a network, which can be a really good thing, can be really healthy. But there's that phrase, isn't there, that comparison is the thief of joy. And I think actually for some people, they may well have a flying start, and so by 6 months might be up here. So you initially have that expectation, but actually for whatever reason you're there, and it may well be because of the situation that you're in with your personal life or your particular location. And so although comparison and franchisee kind of the network can be amazing, it can also then be a cause of some of that absence as well, I think.
It strikes me that as the network grows, this you're either going to have this positive vibe or this potentially negative vibe, depending on what's going on. And as the network grows, that's going to just become. It's like there's a feedback loop that makes that have a bigger impact somehow.
That's a really interesting point, and for me, again, to pick up on both what you've just said there, Rob, but also Jen, what you've again articulated. Talking about proactivity, talking about having the right tools and systems and training. What is interesting to me, and again, I say what I'm about to say, knowing how I got it wrong. All those years ago when I didn't understand any of this stuff. It's so easy to inadvertently and to be well-intentioned from a franchise support perspective, to actually throw fuel on the fire about what you've just said. So, using, for example, other people comparatively as part of a well-intended, this is something that that you should aspire to, for example, and literally throwing more and more pressure into what is already, a pretty pressurized scenario in any event, particularly in the early stages. I think, when you're at the beginning of the life cycle, but it's not exclusive to that. So I think, tools and training for the individual in relation to mental health, 100%, but also tools and training for those who are providing support, because, if they don't understand the importance of the things that we're talking about, it's so easy to actually inadvertently create more anxiety, stress, and fear, even when you're trying to help.
And I think it's really important then to remember when a franchisee is recruited. I remember back from my days of working in franchisor team as well, that the emphasis is so much on the individual and their characteristics and their qualities and who they are and their personal situation and all sorts. And so I think it's keeping that level of importance about them as an individual and how they work, how they tick throughout their journey as a franchisee with you too. Because actually for some people, having that kind of competitive element of seeing how a neighbouring franchisee is done is like absolute fuel to fire, isn't it? And it's like, yeah, that's where I can get, that's amazing. But for another, that might be really tricky. They may see that as pressure. So I think it's when providing that support, it's remembering the individual and actually what they need. So just like with physical health, making kind of really person-centered in terms of care, support, but also motivation. So what do they actually want? What makes them tick?
One size fits none approach isn't going to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, but that's interesting, isn't it? Because again, in the world of franchising, the reality of what makes franchising successful is replicating the model.
Yeah.
And so the behavior that can come with that is actually, potentially a one size fits all approach. And that's, I absolutely understand why that's important when it comes to systems and processes that need to be in place to run the business. But it's interesting. I mean, I've been...
It's a one-size-fits-all approach, but not one-size-fits-all advice.
Yes, exactly. And I'm just going to say, I'm going to go back... I'll go back 40 years, so that's given my age away for sure. But, when I first started my nursing career, the concept of having a person-centered holistic approach wasn't there by default. It was there by design, because when it comes to treating humans, okay, yes, that was in a care setting, but this is a care setting as well. We should be, I think, as leaders of franchising businesses, whether we're providing support or we're actually leaders, leadership's about taking care of the people in your care. And that includes all of the things that we're talking about here. So just because you've got the right model, it does not become automatic that success will flow unless you take a person-centric approach.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It makes good business sense too. Like it's very easy to have that thought of, well, we can't do this on an individual basis for everyone because we just don't have time. But the reality is actually, if you don't invest that kind of person-centered approach for each of your franchisees, that's when you end up spending all of your time having to firefight in a crisis situation. So it is that kind of that future investment. Like, yeah, it might take you a little bit longer now, but actually you're going to see the benefits of that in a much longer, stronger franchise relationship.
Completely.
We're too busy running ourselves and everyone else into the ground, so we don't have time for the human-centered approach. Seems a bit...
Yeah. And I think that kind of that hustle culture seems to be going slightly. I think, like, it used to be when I was first kind of on LinkedIn, it always used to be talking about people almost bragging and being proud of the fact that they were constantly working into the night and early mornings and on holiday, and it kind of seems to have gone the other way, that actually people are now proudly
Bragging
talking
about
about
time off.
switching off and yeah, being able to have that break, and that's great. But again, I think even that is, again, it's down to the individual. For some people, switching off entirely is exactly what they need for a holiday, but some people, for a proper mental break, they need to still switch on every day, but maybe have that boundary of only doing it for half an hour in the morning. But for them, as a business owner, that actually allows them the freedom of their mind to switch off, because they've not got this build up of what could be going on in my inbox or whatever it is. So even that, I think, even the downtime, you can't say to someone what their downtime looks like.
No. And that for me, Jen, as well, goes, right to the heart of actually what coaching is around as well. Coaching is firmly rooted in meeting the coachee exactly where they are. But again, as I say, I come back to the fact that there is such, in so many places, there are gaps in that level of knowledge and understanding about what is required to actually proactively address these challenges, because I think in my experience, they exist in every single franchise business across the globe.
Yeah, no matter the sector or size of business. Yeah. It's always the same kind of conversations, the same kind of challenges, whether it's a new emerging children's activity brand, or whether it's a global business that's been going for years. It's the same. People are people, really. So they face the same pressures in and outside of business, or similar anyway, particularly outside of business. And it's inevitable that at some point that's going to impact you, which can impact your business if you don't have the right awareness and tools to deal with it.
It feels to me like we've got this simultaneous move towards AI and automation and machine learning and all of this, and then also simultaneously an expansion in the human-centered approach, almost happening side by side.
Yeah, it's just knowing when to use it, I think, isn't it? Like at the BFA conference last year, Stephen Bartlett was the keynote, and he talked about being able to lean into things like AI, and that for some sectors, they'll back away from it and say, no, that's not for us. And I think you could easily do that with something like coaching, like with mental health, because they are so human focused. But actually, you can't do that, because things like AI and doing automation, they are there. So it's actually how can you lean into it? Like, I think even things like ChatGPT has the ability to do some really good coaching. And I'm not wanting to do us out of any business here, Graham. But I think actually, as an initial, you can't discard it. Really, is thinking about actually, okay, how can we use it to best support? And it's all about how you can lean into things. And I think, just like AI, mental health and well-being is here to stay. It's not something that isn't, that is going anywhere. So it's actually, okay, how can we lean into this for our business? Because the new generations that are coming up and coming into franchising, they are expecting that holistic approach, that holistic support, because that's what they would expect from recruitment, from a job. And although this isn't the same, a franchise is not a job, people still have similar expectations. So there was a HR conference a little while ago where one of the surveys talked about the fact that the kind of younger generation coming into the adult workforce now, one of their expectations is actually they would get financial support from their employer. So I know this is an employed setting, but not in terms of financial support as in being given money, but information and teaching tools and knowledge around money management. And that's something that even I'm 32, but I wouldn't expect And so I think that change, it shows how much it's changing what people's expectations are. So I think it's so important as an industry that actually we look at how we can lean into that, not say, oh, they're snowflakes and they're expecting too much. It's like, actually, how can we lean into this, and what is it going to give our business in return?
Yeah. There's also maybe only so much one-to-one advice that you can provide, or your teams can provide, however it's being done. And if there
Yeah.
are ways to kind of expand it out, at least on the first response basis, on a one-to-many basis, using technology, for instance, then as long as it's providing good insights and good outcome, then obviously providing financial advice to people is perhaps a rookie situation, but
yeah, it's about, I think we've said it already. It's not a one size fits all. It's a holistic and it's a blended approach, and we need to be embracing all of these things, and whatever it is that's going to have the biggest impact, because that ultimately that's what we're here to do. It's yes, of course, there's commercialism in whatever most people are doing, but it's, for me, and I think, Jen, I'm sure you share this, it's about, what is the impact we can actually have, whether that is through, education, support, whatever it may be. Because it matters, because we are, everybody's, we're either somebody's husband, wife, partner, son, daughter, whatever. And the reality of what happens in a franchise business, whether we like it or not, we take it home. And whatever happens at home, we take it into a business. And, you can't, I don't think you can separate these things out. We're not robots. We can't just turn things on and off. So, the better that we get, I think, and the better we are able to provide support in a cost-effective, way, because, there is no bottomless pit of money either. That's the other side. So
No, that's the thing. It is how can you, to me, it's all about how can you provide that tailored support, but on a big scale where you're not having to, have this bottomless pit of money. And that's partly why I put together the mental fitness portal, my clients, so that actually franchisees, teams can log in and pick and choose, their own tools. So it's actually about empowering and educating people to have those tools and build that awareness in themselves. Because you're right, you can't do that one-to-one thing all the time. And actually, that's not what franchising is. You're not there to buy a job. You are there to build a business. So just like you need to learn your sales and marketing skills and your business skills, you need to be able to learn your resilience skills as well, don't you? And how you can actually look after and build your mental fitness.
Yeah, for sure.
We've talked in the past, Graham, about some franchisees being round pegs in square holes. Maybe they should arguably have not got involved in that particular franchise opportunity in the first place. But then the question is like, well, are they really a round peg in a square hole? Or is there something about their resilience or their mental health that could be worked on, perhaps, to potentially turn things around in a situation that is going to head to a disastrous outcome otherwise?
Again, that's a really important point, Rob, because, again, as I look back over 20 years and I think about the times where the conclusion was they're a round peg in a square hole, square peg, round peg, square hole, yep, or they're just difficult. These individuals,
too big an ego. Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, but when we come back to, exactly what Jen's talking about, definitely from a mental health perspective, but also in the way that sometimes we have perhaps inadvertently triggered and added to whatever anxiety or stress or fear that's there. And that's one thing, as we've talked about before, when it comes to coaching with compassion, for example, what has been discovered is that when you're in that emotional state, when you are suffering from stress, anxiety, fear, whatever symptoms that people are displaying. The reality, what we now know, is that, and this is backed by significant research, neuroscience. What we know is that it's those things that actually very often in people trigger fight or flight response. And the other point about franchising, the reality of life is that people they're not in a job. They've typically contracted legally, whether it's 5, 7, 10-year franchise agreements. But of course, when you think about human behavior, what do we do when we're in fight or flight mode? What do we do when we are potentially thinking about our whole livelihood disappearing in front of our eyes? Well, quite often at that point, when you're suffering from overwhelm or whatever, it's unsurprising that the first person to blame is the franchisor.
I think you either shut down or lash out.
Yeah. And so the very people who need the most help at the most significant time of need are often, and I've been there, I've labelled people in my ignorance years ago as being difficult. They're not listening to me. I'm telling them what needs to happen. I am on top of the situation, driving performance. You need to do this. You need to do more of that. You need to invest money in marketing. I know you've got no cash. Where are you going to get that from? And before you know it, you are, as I say, or you can be unknowingly creating a massive problem within your business. And Jen, you said it 5-10 minutes ago. The stuff that we're talking about here requires investment. And that's, sometimes it's investment in time, but also some investment in money. And yet it's often so far down the list of the things that people want to invest in that is ironic, I guess, is what I would say.
Jen, perhaps you can talk to that in the context of the survey that you've recently done. Like, where is people's franchisors thinking at the moment on this?
So, generally speaking, the vast majority of franchisors wanted to do more. So you've got that stat there from the takeaway. 1 in 5 people believe that we're doing enough. So that's the vast majority that believe we could and should be doing more. Most franchisors within this survey, so just in case anybody doesn't know, Cinder did the first ever National Franchise Wellbeing Survey at the start of the year, which Franchology very kindly sponsored and made happen. And the results, generally speaking, I think they showed that people acknowledge and want change. So 97% of franchisors and 100% of franchisees acknowledge the fact that their poor mental health and well-being either has or could have the ability to negatively impact their business. So I think the awareness of the important impact of poor mental health is absolutely there. But the key barriers to doing anything about it was really budget and other business priorities. So I think that's where it's getting that balance of actually seeing that, yes, there are other business priorities, but actually if you invest in this first, could some of those challenges that you're facing either be negated completely or certainly lessened?
Yeah, I think this is invest, not spend.
Yeah. It's not a one-off. Like generally when you're investing in mental health and well-being, it is skills for life. It's skills that you're going to use in and out of business. But I think what you were talking about before, Graham, with, whether it's people, whether they have, a bad attitude and being difficult, or is it mental health? I think the trouble is it's getting a really delicate balance of understanding that actually, yes, sometimes when people are being difficult, it is because of a challenge with mental health. But I think it's also so important that people don't use poor mental health as just a blanket excuse.
Yeah, sure.
Because what happens then, when people are saying, oh, well, it's my mental health, if it's not, actually what that does happen is it really diminishes the significance when someone is genuinely experiencing a challenge with their mental health. And I think that's where a lot of this grey area comes, because we can't necessarily see anxiety or depression on an X-ray like you might for a broken bone. There is still some skepticism around it, because there are people that do use it in a very kind of blasé way. And that makes it really tricky when people actually do need support, because the reality is we are, everyone is human, and sometimes people do just have a really bad attitude, sometimes that is the case. So it's how do you get that balance? And I think, at least from a franchisor's point of view, if you know that you've given all of those tools, whether that's training, whether it's on-demand tools, whatever it is, at least if you're giving that, kind of morally and from a business point of view, that you're giving that you're giving that to your network to use. And if they do or don't, that's when it's then up to them, just like you do with other business tools in a franchise.
Perhaps you can't just also bolt it on as an add-on. It's got to be built on the foundation of a solid relationship that's had the foundations put in place from the start.
Yeah, so we call it like creating that psychologically safe culture, where actually it's part of general conversation. When it's asked in a genuine way, not just you're right, but actually, how are things going, and even the priority of when you have those conversations. So I've been a franchisee as well before, and so I know from having those like one-to-one support conversations, it's in what priority order do you ask how things are? Do you ask genuinely how you are before you ask how sales are and what your money goals are? So it's even down to the order of questions in a support conversation is really important.
At the tiny noticeable things, isn't it, Graham?
It is. It's funny. I mean, just as Jen was talking there, I mean, the other point just to note is it actually should start. This whole process should start in the recruitment phase. This for me goes to the heart of the benefit, the value of awarding, and I mean genuinely awarding, not a marketing buzzword awarding a franchise, but genuinely awarding the franchise opportunity to the right people. And as part of that, we've touched on Angela Duckworth and the research that sits behind Grit and Resilience. Even that, if we think about it, we could start the assessment of Grit and Resilience right in the recruitment process. And it's not to say that something is right or wrong, but if we flag up in the recruitment process that flows into the kind of tailored, bespoke support that could be provided, there are some people who are probably much more prone to having issues around Grit and Resilience that we could flag up with a very simple assessment at the front.
This does happen in employment settings. This is why people do assessment days and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. But this goes to the heart of franchise recruitment done well, and again, there are so many amazing franchisors, well-intentioned franchisors, but this for me comes back to these are the things, particularly if you're at the beginning of a franchising journey, you're maybe moving from having built a business, a successful business, to deciding on franchising as a growth strategy. So many of these things that we are discussing here, if you don't know what you don't know, you will make all sorts of assumptions about what good franchising is like. And of course, people should be signposted to the British Franchise Association and all of the support networks that are there about responsible, ethical franchising. But for me, this goes to the heart of some of the things that we can really do simply, but in a way that is really powerful, and that will then proactively avoid some of the things that we're talking about happening.
I think it's really important to clarify there as well. I think you're right. Actually doing that kind of asking those questions as part of recruitment is really important, but not to base your decision on whether you would award a franchise. So if someone comes out as having, low grit and resilience, that's not a reason to not award a franchise, because actually resilience is a skill, and like pretty much any skill, can be taught and learned. Sometimes people just aren't resilient because they've never needed to be. Perhaps they've lived a really fortunate life where they've not faced a time where they have to be particularly resilient. So actually it's definitely a skill that can be learned. And
I
often
think all humans are resilient. I think some of us just need more support and maybe can't battle through the wilderness by ourselves, and that's fine.
yeah, and even know that they've got it in them to do that. And so actually, do the assessment, but only from a point of, right, okay, as and when this person is in a challenge, they might actually need us to come in and help a little bit more to identify kind of what characters and coping mechanisms they either already have or need building.
Completely agree.
Do you ever do any sorts of Kolbe assessments, or try to kind of get a real feel for how people process information, for instance?
Is that to me or Graham? Sorry.
Well, either.
Graham, you can go first.
I was just going to say, I think, one of the most important parts of, again, the onboarding process when it comes to franchisees is, some form of perhaps, behavioral assessments, whether that's using DISC profiles or insights profiles or whatever it is.
There's lots of great tools for this.
Yeah, exactly. And to Jen's point, it's not about good or bad. It's just about understanding, so for example, if your person, some of those assessments will include things like how you're likely to behave when under stress. So again, it's not a we shouldn't appoint this. It's about knowing what that individual needs and what they're likely to need in those kind of scenarios. So, there's all sorts of tools there. But again, for me, it starts with the mindset of, if your goal, and I'm not saying every franchisor is like this, but there are some franchisors with a goal which is that we just want to sell as many franchise units as possible, whatever that is. And in my experience, having experienced that right in the beginning,
recipe for a joyless business, I'm afraid.
it is a joyless business, and it
means there's a lot of crisis management coming, I think.
Yeah. But that's exactly right, Jen. And I was in the firing line of providing the crisis management in the beginning of my franchising career, and when that includes, the real flip side of that, when that includes people either being, physically, mentally impacted by these things, and in the worst case scenarios, losing everything, including the home. That's not where anybody wants to be, and that's not what great franchising is about. So the more we can do up front, the better.
Let's talk about some more things that franchisors can do, put in place, potentially get help. I've put a few thoughts on the slides, but Jan, I wondered if you had any thoughts on what people can put in place.
Yeah, so I think you've covered some really good ones on there. I think having that wellbeing policy is a really good foundation. I think we talk a lot of the time about having policies in place, don't we? And they often are documents that people forget where they're saved and aren't actually accessed. But I think a wellbeing policy in particular is one that has to be live, has to be written in understandable English, not HR speak. No offense to HR people out there, but it has to be something that is easy to understand, because if someone is struggling, particularly if they're very much at the start of thinking something's not quite right, they need to be able to easily access tools and information, because you don't want to hinder any of that kind of process, I guess, of realize something's not quite right and wanting to get help. So a wellbeing policy is a really good thing to have in place to protect your franchisee and yourself, because this isn't an employee role. It is different. And so actually it sets out why is it important? So why is mental health and wellbeing important for you and for your franchisees? And then what is the black and white of where you will step in, what support is available? And it takes out that grey area, because grey area is a really challenging thing to have in any kind of mental health challenges. There is so much uncertainty already when it comes to poor mental health. You know, often a lack of certainty, and thought distortion. So that catastrophizing, that is such a common thread within any mental health challenge, and so that's what we want to avoid. And a wellbeing policy actually takes away a lot of that, because it's there written in black and white. So I think that's one of the strongest things you can start with. And after that, in whatever format, it is about building knowledge. So whether that's self-awareness, not just navel gazing, but those tools that you were talking about then, actually, what makes me tick? Why do I think in that way? And what are then the patterns of behavior afterwards? And really importantly, how do you then manage that? Because exactly as you said, Graham, it's great building that foundation of awareness, but then how do you actually manage those challenges? So if you're someone that behaves this way in a certain challenge, that's great to know, but what are you then going to do about it? How do you manage it?
I think knowing yourself is one of the great challenges in life. I think I'm not much older than you, but slightly older than you, and I still think this is one of the things that I struggle with, perhaps as much as anyone. So yeah, it's also acknowledging that.
Absolutely, and it's building that as part of the norm. Like, that's why I joined the franchise that I had before, because it was all about building emotional literacy in children, so that actually as adults we're not in that position where we don't know what a certain emotion is. We know it from that really young age, and that's so important, because one of the phrases I use fairly often is that you have to be able to name it to tame it. So in order to manage it and tame that particular uncomfortable emotion or whatever it is, you have to be able to name it. You have to realize what it is so that you can deal with it.
Yeah. Graham, is there anything in your experience that people should consider?
I think really just what we've touched on already, I suppose, which is, don't underestimate the power of coaching when it comes to these things as well. I think, that level of self-awareness is definitely crucial in order to be able to build resilience and make sense of things. And I think, the clarity that comes with that, and back to, I'm obviously just a little bit older than both of you. In fact, I feel like if I had your ages together, that might be mine, but there we go. But the reality is, we are living in a drastically, different world, aren't we? And, all of the impacts of the things that we're talking about, including, and I don't have a downer on social media, but social media has another role to play in all of this as well. And I think, it's so easy to be, I think, Jen, you said it earlier, to be, to compare yourself to others. So I think anything that you can do to raise your own self-awareness, recognize the kind of, the common behaviors and beliefs, because that's the other thing. We're all coming at this with vastly different beliefs from whatever our own circumstances have helped us to develop, and some of those beliefs very often include self-limiting beliefs as well, which is another real challenge to be overcome when we are running a business. So.
Yeah, your self-limiting beliefs will become apparent. I think, I forget who said it, but being in business is the best way to grow, because it shines the harshest mirror of truth onto yourself. and it's worth doing in that regard. But
Well, I mean, the other thing I'll just say on self-limiting beliefs, particularly doing what I've done with Franchology over the last 6 years, virtually every single person that I've had, a sufficiently in-depth conversation with, almost without exception, everybody, myself included, have and has had self-limiting beliefs. And but of course, when you're not engaging with that kind of conversation as well, it's so easy to think that you're the only one that's having self-limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
So, but I guess places like her tribe, Jen, as well, will go somewhere to help actually provide, psychologically safe spaces for people to actually be open and
Yeah,
vulnerable about the challenges that we all face in life.
exactly that. Yeah, it's being able to have, like you said, Rob, before, it's actually being able to acknowledge those I don't want to say flaws in yourselves, but patterns of behavior or patterns of thought process, and feeling safe and comfortable to be able to do so. I think that's why so many people choose a franchise network over going it alone, because they are part of something else. And so we have to use the strengths of a network, not allow people to get stuck in the potential negatives and challenges, because actually one of the things that came out massively in the survey is, even though people are a part of a network and a part of something, loneliness and isolation, particularly for franchisees and still franchisors, was a massive feature across the board. And so actually that's where we've got massive opportunity to do something new there, is make more of those strengths and opportunities that we have of having a collective group of people that are working towards the same thing.
it's completely different from for me, for instance, being more of a freelancer, and my wife saying, "Okay, it's time to go out and see the real people, not just the people on Zoom."
Yeah. And remember why you're doing something, right? Like, I think that's so important. The vast majority of franchisees and franchisors go into this because they want a better work-life balance. They want a bit more meaning in their life that isn't just being told what to do and a slave to your work. So actually it's remembering that
The
you're
route out
doing
of corporate might be a strong.
Yeah, and so I think
initially.
from day one, as well as knowing all of those tools and techniques for mental health and building your well-being, it's actually about remembering to do that as a business function.
Yeah.
So moving towards wrapping up, Jen, what kind of services do you provide for people looking for help with this, and where can people?
So off the back of this survey, I am actually launching something pretty new, which is coming next month. So I am still in the process of building it, so I'm being a bit of a secret squirrel here. But it's going to be addressing those things around awareness, and business priorities and budget. So more to come, basically. I'm being a bit secretive here, I know, but we're still building out all of the details. But what we want to do is, I want to make sure that actually addressing mental health and well-being in franchising is something that is accessible, whatever kind of sector or size of franchise that you've got. So that will be coming next month. It will all be to do with training and on-demand features. So that is for Cinder. And then for Her Tribe, we have our very first retreat in October. And amazingly, even though we only opened the doors on Monday, we've only got 5 tickets left. So that's incredible. It shows just how much it's needed, I think. And then the retreat is just the first part. So part 2 is our online community, and that launches in September. So really exciting things going on over the next couple of months.
Fantastic.
So I think I dropped off for a second, but I'm back. I'm glad you caught enough of my question there to to talk about Cinder and explain what you do.
Hopefully that was the question. Otherwise, you've just got something that you didn't need.
Yeah, no, that was definitely the question. In terms of Franchology, if anyone's watching this would like to get more help with pretty much any aspect of the franchise business, particularly about building systems to attract the right franchisees and to build resilience and to build a solid foundation and to build a scalable asset that also brings them joy and supports whatever lifestyle you want. Franchology.com/start is the place to go and speak to Graham. We start with a holistic review. So we start with identifying where you are before you can move forwards, pinpoint what the real issues are and what the hidden bottlenecks might be that when you're in the business, you just can't see. I will add actually a comment. So Gareth commented on LinkedIn that nothing gave me more confidence, calm and resilience than working with Graham and Claire and following their process guidance 18 years ago when I was swimming towards the deep end in my franchisee experience, coaching with heart.
Bless him.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Gareth, for that comment. Nice to know that you're on LinkedIn Live as well.
Jonathan from Your Way says, since engaging with Franchology shortly after signing our first franchise partner, our progress has been remarkable. In just 1 to 2 years, we've expanded to 10 franchise partners and have developed a comprehensive plan for continued growth, aiming to reach 150 franchise partners over the next decade. This success is directly attributable to the innovative strategies and unwavering support provided by Franchology. Graham, is there anything else you'd like to say for anyone who is running a franchise business, looking to grow it, perhaps needs help? Is there anything else we should say to those people?
Just simply put, as I said, genuinely always happy to engage in, have a coffee over Zoom and have a informal chat just to find out if there's anything I can either offer in terms of advice during that call and or anything I could do potentially post that. But always happy to have a chat and do whatever I can to help.
Very good. I don't have any other questions on the live chat at the moment. If anyone is watching and has a question for either Graham or Jen or for the group generally, let me know. I'm just going to post the link for the holistic review in the different places. But yeah, I mean, we are pretty much at 1 o'clock. So yeah, just like to say thanks for joining us if this is a hard stop for you. Yeah, we do these every month. I did put a link at the start for people to join the mailing list. So if you'd like to be notified when the notes from this session are ready. So we do like a 2-page summary of the main discussion points and the main takeaways. So you can register for a copy of that and also a high quality replay and to be notified when we schedule next month's session, which is currently TBC.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob.
Okay. Anything else? Any final words, Jen or Graham, or should I wrap up the session?
All right. Thanks for having me.
Splendid. Okay. Thanks so much, and we'll leave this there.
Cheers, Rob. Thanks everybody. Thanks, Jen. Take care.
Thank you.